Hello, I'm Craig Ferryman. QMTV's Meet the Candidates is now joined by another candidate vying for the position of ULU Vice President 2011-12. Kaye Selby is in her third year studying an undergraduate degree LLB in law and is the president of women's rugby at University College London. She joins me now. Kaye, welcome to the programme. What in your view, first of all, is the role of a students' union?
In my view, the role of a students' union is to represent all of its students, ensure that people from different backgrounds, have different interests, are recognised by their union and represented fully. Okay,
now, what do you think makes a good ULU Vice President, and why do you think you're more qualified than all of the other candidates who are running?
I believe a good ULU Vice President is able to juggle, essentially. They can juggle different interests, different opinions, look at people's different backgrounds, different college sizes, and is able to potentially look at and reach every single person within their union.
Okay. And you in particular, why would you be better than the other four candidates running in this race?
I'd say from my 3 years as a student, I'm still very much in the heart of student life. I understand how students think, how students feel, what they want from both their education and from their unions. As a law student, I've had a lot of experience in ethical understanding, student welfare. I also have a very strong sporting background, being a member of sports societies for 3 years. I also have a great background of working with art societies, sitting on numerous boards amongst both my own union and others as well.
Okay. Now, engagement with ULU is low. What is the institution doing wrong?
I don't believe they are looking at every single college within the University of London. I believe, even though it's been a very political time at the moment, looking at cuts and fees, we need to try and reach students through other courses of action. I mean, sports and societies, it's a way for people of every college to get involved. ULU has 150,000 students, only 50 societies. Nobody knows about those societies. There's too much segregation between the colleges. And I believe that if we can try and unite everyone through those basic ideas, then we can reach more people.
Okay, now how would you improve societies, sports and facilities generally within ULU?
I believe it has to begin from the beginning of term. We need to have more recognition at the Freshers' Fair. We need to outreach to more students. We need to have more liaising between ULU and the individual University of London colleges. Everyone's very, very used to having their own union. They're very strong unions with great activities, great welfare, but we need to try and unite because together we are stronger.
Okay, I mean, would your aim be to make people veer more towards ULU than their own union, or just to better understand the facilities available at ULU?
Better understanding the facilities. Obviously, when everyone joins a college at University of London, everyone has their own ideas, everyone has their own traditions, but we need to make it so that those who aren't being recognised by their own unions feel they can approach ULU. I think every single year in most universities, only 40% of students at most join a sports or society at their university. And we need to look at who isn't being reached, particularly postgraduate students.
I should say that, without naming names because it would contravene the ULU election regulations, but with that in mind for the next two questions, firstly, what qualities would you look for in a president to complement you as a vice president?
As a president, I believe that a great candidate would be someone who is willing to listen and is representing every single person in that union. They need to look beyond political idealisms and understand they're representing everyone. They're representing the University of London as a federation. It's a shining beacon, I believe. It's the biggest federation in the UK, and they need to be able to understand that there are many different opinions, many different ways of going about it.
Is it possible to represent all 120,000 students in the University of London Union?
Obviously, it's very, very difficult. Everyone has a different understanding, a different grasp of issues, but I believe that perhaps how things have been run over the last few years, people aren't made so aware of how ULU works. There's not enough transparency, not enough communication between the University of London and individual colleges. I believe that if we can try and focus on this and move beyond and liaise with each other, we can get more opinions from more students and better represent them.
And again, without naming names, how do you think the incumbent, the current VP, has done this year?
I think there's been some fantastic projects that have been run this year. The volunteering scheme, the ULU legal advice scheme, and obviously coming from a personally one of the larger colleges, we've also had similar things implemented. I think she's done very, very well in her role.
So she deserves another year?
I believe that every single year you need to have new change. I know there have been some great projects. I do believe there have been some faults. Perhaps there's been too much focusing on individual projects rather than sports clubs and societies as a whole, which, in my opinion, is the major remit of the Vice President.
Okay. So they would be, in your view, the fault lines of the current...
I believe so at this moment,
yeah. Now, a large amount of your manifesto seems to be based around sports and societies, and those points that deal with other issues seem very vague. Sports and societies, though, is only one facet of what ULU does. The VP role has to take the lead on increasing engagement and participation and running all internal campaigns. What are you going to do to fulfil these other criteria, such as running internal campaigns?
With my manifesto, I was obviously trying to touch upon other areas that haven't been mentioned by other candidates. I do believe that has been widely ignored over the last few years, not just with this current term, but previous terms as well. I believe we need to have more engagement with networks, women's networks, environmental networks. This is something that I've had a lot of experience with over my last few years at UCL, and also within my degree programme as a whole. I study environmental law, I study medical and ethics law, so I have a very good understanding of recycling issues, carbon capture issues, and how we can do more to make the ULU a greener university, a greener establishment.
Well, you mentioned there that you have a lot of experience over the last 3 years in some of the... You mentioned there with regards to environmental campaigns, for example. What about women's campaigns or liberation campaigns? What experience have you got? That
I've had a good experience with joining the UCL Women's Network, and that's about raising the profile of women on campus, off campus, getting involved with campaigns, particularly with education campaigns, both here and abroad.
Okay.
And also as a president of Women's Rugby, it's always about getting diversity of sports, but also getting diversity of members, trying to get people, the unrecognised minority, to become more recognised.
And have you been involved in campaigns or running campaigns which have been to do with liberation or political campaigns or awareness campaigns of any kind?
As an individual, I don't really like to get too much involved in politics. That's more something I would do before my university days. I was involved in a lot of campaigning in local elections. I'm all about getting people to vote and recognise democratic rights.
Okay. Many students are happy just being involved with the clubs and societies at their own college, or are happy sometimes not to even be involved at all. How would you engage with these particular students?
These people need to be aware of the clubs and societies that are made available. It's very, very easy for the university colleges who are very close to ULU to come down to the Freshers' Fair and get involved. It's about those who are beyond the campus, who are further away, who are smaller, who don't get noticed so much. It's about making sure they know exactly what's available, that they can join, and also just trying to perhaps liaise the two ULU sports and societies as well as with those who are already established. I know there are many, many members who play sports both for ULU and for their individual college.
Okay. Well, Kaye Selby, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.